Good morning, Columbia County and surrounding areas. Welcome to this Friday morning edition of Columbia County Connect, where we try to answer a few of your questions and tell you a little bit about county government. We got a couple of very important topics this morning. One that's just sprung on us because of the weather and an event that's scheduled for tomorrow. We've got Butch Holley, who is our events manager. Butch, tell us about your thinking for hounds around town and red, white, and blue tomorrow.
Well, I tell you, Chairman, there are a lot of things that we can do and prepare for. And the one thing that you have to take into consideration all the time is the weather. So we do have two events tomorrow. The first one is Hounds Around Town, which is a lot of fun. It's a celebration of everything dogs and canines throughout the area. The day is going to kick off at 10 a.m. with a blessing, which will be interesting. Adam Hildebrand from Wesley United Methodist Church will be delivering those words. And then throughout the day, we'll have an exhibition diving. Now, people have seen this on TV, on ESPN, and so forth. We're bringing in a 14,000-gallon tank for these dogs to run off a platform and dive. And I've watched it on TV. I'm really interested to see it in person.
The dogs love it too.
The dogs love it, boy. And so knowing that it might be a little wet tomorrow, the competitors are going to be wet anyway. So we kind of looked at it as we'll let the dogs get out there and swim and do their thing. But throughout the day, there'll be vendors set up with everything specialized with dogs. There'll be plenty of food vendors, so if you want to bring a lunch or get a lunch while you're there, that's a good idea. And then, knowing that it may be a little wet tomorrow, we've moved the Veterans Day celebration from, originally we planned on having it over near the memorial wall and behind the library. But to account for the wet weather, we're going to move everything over to Lady Antebellum stage.
So the band will have cover? The
band will have cover, that's exactly right. And as part of that, everything will stay at the same time at 6:30. The program will begin, it'll run for about an hour. And then we will have a concert brought to us by the Fort Gordon Army Signal Corps Band. That'll play for about through 8 o'clock, and then we will have a fireworks show as well. I do want everybody to know that with us moving the venue, the fireworks show is going to shut down Kroger Road. So the road that goes in between Evans Town Center Park Boulevard and the back side of the Kroger Shopping Center, beginning at noon tomorrow, we will close it down to prep for the fireworks show. And
tell them again, when does everything start with the hounds?
Hounds Around Town begins at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
And it runs through approximately 3:30, somewhere right in there.
Oh, okay, a lot of events.
Yeah, it is. It's a good long day. We will be monitoring the weather throughout the day. As you know, we have a great early warning detection system for thunder and lightning throughout the park. So if we do get those alerts, we'll stop things for the day and send everybody off of the field. But hopefully that weather will pass in time for us to resume things or to move right into the Veterans Day celebration.
The important thing, I guess, to remember is that the events will go on. We have debated it considerably. We always do with these kind of situations because the safety of the public is the number one thing. And like Butch said, if there is any indication of thunderstorms and lightning, the events will stop and ask to clear the field. But hopefully with the kind of uncertainty of the forecast, it has dropped from 100% chance to 80% chance, and now you say it's
60% chance now.
So maybe those scattered showers or whatever will move on through and will be able to hold the event. So keep that in mind. Thank you, Butch.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being here. You got a lot of things that's been lined up and working on for next year. So
yes, sir. Got a good time ahead of us.
Keep plugging.
Yes, sir. We sure will.
We go from something that everybody enjoys to something that very few of us enjoy. We have with us our tax commissioner, Mr. Wayne Bridges. Wayne is a CPA. He's a former member of the Board of Education. What, did you serve about 8 years?
12.
12 years. Okay, so you and I were tied before the last election, and you were smart enough to get out.
Exactly.
Tell us, what's a little bit of difference in serving as tax commissioner and Board of Education? Well, one's a full-time and one's a part-time, but what do you see as similarities and what are differences?
Well, first of all, the similarities, you're serving the public and the citizens of Columbia County, but it is totally different in that Board of Education acts as trustees. They're basically there to to set policy and then turn it over to the administration, the teachers, to get the job done, which they do very well, as we all know. And then the tax commissioner's office is a hands-on. It's making sure things are done properly according to state law and local law, and making sure that the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that come into this county are properly allocated to where they're supposed to go, and that we are diligent in getting that money so that the county can progress.
Well, you're to be congratulated for your work on the school board, because Columbia County continues to be ranked extremely high in educational standards and graduation rates and a lot of the more important things.
And we did that, as you know, which carries over to what we're talking about today. We did that under a period of tremendous growth. Yeah. It was just, we were always building 1 or 2 schools, which they still are building 1 or 2 schools a year, it seems like now. So.
Some of that money to build those schools is one of the items we're going to talk about. Nobody likes paying taxes, but when you can see what your tax money goes to and what benefits it is, I think it softens the blow a little bit. And that's the case with our SPLOST proceeds and sales tax.
Right.
Now, Wayne, every time we buy something, excluding gasoline, it's got a little different setup with the excise tax.
That's right.
We pay 8% in Columbia County.
That's right.
Now, I imagine that very few people out there know exactly what that 8% goes to. Now, what we're talking about with education is the 1% that goes to what is called eSPLOST, which is for educational work, which can go to capital improvements, correct?
That's right. And there's some other things that can go to as well as capital improvements, and you could actually do things when you have to get it approved, but you could buy books and things like that. Our county doesn't do that at the present time, I don't think, but because we have such a need for capital improvements. We need buildings, and we need additions to buildings because of the number of portables that we have in this county, just because of the growth again. And you know, it's a good thing, but it costs money, and you're also under the, you know, you're kind of under the authority of the federal government and the state government to build these schools like you're supposed to build them. I mean, you've got certain building standards that you have to meet. You have to have a certain number of acres, you know, for this type of school, and certain number of acres for this kind of school. So there's a lot more to it than just going out and buying a piece of property and sticking a building on it. You have to follow the rules and the regs, and we all know that construction costs are not cheap. So.
Well, I believe that format is like the regular SPLOST program, that whatever you put in the referendum for the voters to vote on, you're allowed to do it under that criteria.
That's right. You need to follow that criteria. So
because that's 1 cent. Remember about sales tax. It's a flat rate consumer-based tax.
Right.
Guy driving through Columbia County from Atlanta, going over to Columbia, going to downtown Augusta, stops and buys something, he contributes to these funds.
That's right.
All right, we got 1 cent out of the way. What is the rest of the?
Well, the total is 8% that a vendor collects from you when you go buy something. That vendor is responsible for sending that into the state. That money doesn't come to the county initially. It goes to the state from the vendor. They're responsible for filing the report, sending the funds to the state. Then the state turns around and keeps their portion, which is 4%, and they send back the other 4%. The first 2%, of course, just comes to the county as sales tax.
One lost local option sales tax.
Right.
And one SPLOST, special purpose local option.
And then you get into your eSPLOST, which we just talked about with the education. And then, of course, recently we started receiving the T-SPLOST, which is the transportation. And that's why I think the guy yesterday at the meeting talked about we're now king of the cones, the orange cones in Columbia County. We just got a lot going on. And a lot of those projects are a direct response to the people paying that 1 cent to the T-SPLOST. One thing I do want people to understand is, like I said, that money doesn't initially come to us. We rely on the state to collect that money and send it back. So at times we're a little bit at their mercy when they get it back to us and things like that, but we do get it back. So.
There's always concern that we're not getting back every penny that's spent in Columbia County. There is one situation we have that I think we've yet to find a solution for, and that is the split zip code of 30907. That's part Augusta Richmond County, and part Columbia County. And it's hard to differentiate between 07 in Columbia County for merchants and 07 in Augusta Richmond.
Yeah.
But the merchants can direct that.
Oh, absolutely. On that form that they file monthly, they're supposed to put what county that money is supposed to be allocated back to. So
but it's tough.
We don't have any way to monitor that.
And the legislative action has, in the past, put forth a program that certain members of county government would have access to the distribution of those proceeds, but it failed.
It failed.
And so it's still, we're at the mercy, as Wayne said, of the Department of Revenue.
Yes.
But again, we're thankful for those people that come through the county. That's why we're always trying to get more and more shopping opportunities so that more and more people will come and buy things in Columbia County as opposed to going to Augusta, Richmond, Atlanta, Columbia, Greenville, those other shopping meccas that we don't have as yet, but it's getting better.
No. It's an important part of our county. It really is.
And remember too that the TIA program, T-SPLOS, Transportation Investment Act of 2010, is why we can expand Riverwatch Parkway. It's how we can improve the situation at Lewiston Road and I-20, the widening of Furious Ferry, the widening of Flowing Wells, bridge improvements at 221 on Appling Harlem Highway, just a ton of things. Plus, we get 25% of that money for discretionary projects around Columbia County. So far, that's resulted in a lot of new sidewalks at schools. Blue Ridge Drive, Con Drive. We got 2 or 3 others in the planning. So while it's still that was an added 1%, it was not a renewal. It's still extremely important to county survival, particularly in a high growth county, as Wayne mentioned earlier. All right, Wayne, we know about sales tax now. Tell us about this dreaded November the 15th. What do you say, they got a day of grace?
Well, I was going to say, you get a little break this year. The 15th falls on a Sunday, so you can go to church and pray that you're going to be able to pay it on Monday. But you do have until Monday the 16th. And something that's important also, we have some drop boxes right outside the tax commissioner's office on Ronald Reagan Drive, and you can put your payment in those boxes, and we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If we pick it up out of the box on Tuesday, we're not going to charge you a penalty. So just be diligent, though. I encourage people to pay it when it's due, because the state mandates penalties and interest, and we have to charge that stuff. And
they come fussing at you, but it's not your rule.
They come fussing at us, and that's fine. We don't mind the fussing, but a lot of times our hands are tied, and we want to help you out all we can. But sometimes the state says, you've got to pay what you got to pay. So I encourage you to get your payment in on time, and like I said, that's the 16th this year. So, but just a little bit about property taxes. I know. This is my first year as tax commissioner, of course, and I'm learning as I go too. And one thing that I think I get questioned about more than anything is how does it work between the tax commissioner and the tax assessor? And so what we do basically is we take information from the tax assessor's office, which is a separate department here in Columbia County, and they go out and do the valuations on the properties and things like that, and then they input that into our system, and then from that we gather information to bill the citizens of Columbia County, and so our job is to make sure the bills are properly calculated, sent out, and then we receive that money and distribute it to the school system, to the county, to the cities in Columbia County as appropriate, and that's all based, of course, on a millage rate. And the millage rate here in Columbia County, the total millage rate is 24.8, which is pretty, comparatively, we're in pretty good shape.
Benchmark counties.
Absolutely, we're at the low end of the counties of our size, and But the school system gets 18.3, so almost 70%.
But I believe with the bonds and the fire service and all, it's really more around 27 mils, isn't it?
No, that's total.
That's total?
That's total. It's about 25.
Okay.
25. So, but again, we're at the low end of our benchmark counties, and one thing, a lot of people don't understand how it's split up, but it's about 70% of that is school tax, and we know why. I mean, it's very difficult.
You got to pay the teachers out of that.
You got to pay the teachers. You got to build the buildings. You got to buy the books. You got to do all the things that it takes to educate what probably now is close to 30,000 students.
Yeah. Let me go over just briefly, Wayne.
Sure.
Wayne occupies one of the offices in the county that's called a constitutional office. These are offices in county government that's dictated by the Constitution, along with the sheriff, the probate court, clerk of court, those things. The tax assessor board is under state regulation, but it is appointed by county government, the members. And then the members elect their director. And their responsibility is to go out and appraise your house, the value of it, based on comparable locations and property and houses. So they might be out measuring, they might be updating. They'll take the sales in your community and average them and say, well, this is the average in this community. You may have a pool, you may have something else that will add to it, but they determine the value that goes to Wayne to start your calculations.
The process of calculating and then collecting taxes.
And I believe the first thing you do, and it's according to state law, is take 40% of the appraised value.
It's 40% of the appraised value, that's right.
And then the millage rate, which is $1 per $1,000 of value.
That's right. That's right.
To determine the amount of tax that that's due.
And that's based on that 40% value.
40%
the millage rate is applied to the 40% value to calculate your tax.
I will mention too that as Wayne made reference that almost 70% of the millage rate and the taxes go to the school board. Of the remaining 30%, probably 60% of that goes to public safety.
Yes.
We have the sheriff's department and all the deputies, the fire department. We have the court system, which has to be funded at some point. They can't survive just on fines and things. So it really is a pretty involved system, but once you kind of understand it, you understand how the funding of county government and the school board is generated.
Yeah, like I said, this being my first year, I've learned a lot, and I'm trying to do some things to just like this. I appreciate the opportunity because I think people in the county need to know how these things work because they need to know where their money goes and how it goes. So I think it's a great opportunity for the citizens, and we encourage anybody to give us a call if they have any questions about any of this stuff.
And as a point of reference, the reason government is so, I guess, glad to see the SPLOST taxes and the sales taxes is that money allows us not to raise property taxes.
That's right.
And property taxes is one of the taxes that you can't really escape. If you own property, you're going to have to pay the tax.
That's right.
Now, sales tax, if you decide you don't really need that widescreen TV or that new car or the other things, and you can put it down the road, you won't be paying the tax. But the other important factor that we've mentioned is that anybody traveling through the area, whatever they buy, they contribute to Columbia County.
That's right.
So you've heard all the talk about a flat rate tax system, doing away with the income tax, doing away with property tax. That may happen, but I don't know, Wayne, you a certified public accountant, that's a large part of your business.
Well, I don't think it'll happen anytime soon.
That's what I'm thinking.
Personally. But you did mention something though. You mentioned vehicles and their tax.
Yeah.
We used to be under the system of a sales tax with vehicles, where you go and buy a vehicle, you pay sales tax, 8%, whatever it might be. Well, that changed a couple of years back as well, and we now have what's called a TAVT, and that's a 7%
ad valorem tax.
Ad valorem tax on your vehicle Kind of
At the time of purchase.
At the time of purchase, and that applies to used vehicles as well. If I buy a vehicle from you, I will go register that vehicle and pay that 7% TAVT, but you don't have to pay that ad valorem tax on a yearly basis.
That's right.
The old birthday tax, as they used to call it. It's still out there for some of the older cars, but for the most part, the TAVT system has sort of taken that over.
And two, I believe the people that had older cars had the option to opt into that program for a certain period of time.
Yes. It's complicated at times, I'll tell you.
You can't escape the taxes.
No.
Hopefully the flat rate consumer-based tax will come in a little greater. If you got any questions about what went on here today with Butch, Holley, or Wayne, send them in. The ladies behind the camera will tell you where to send those questions, and we'll have these gentlemen back next week to answer some if we have any, or we'll get you a direct answer by email. And we do really want your participation. Tell us what you would like to talk about. That's important to us. Because I know a lot of things with county government are not real clear. It's confusing to us, like Wayne said, it's confusing to us about half the time too. There are so many regulations, so many policies that it is tough. But everybody at the county works hard. We've got a lot of really good people. So we welcome your comments, we welcome your questions. Gentlemen, got anything else to add to this?
I just want to reiterate what you just said. We've got great people over in the tax commissioners, the motor vehicle office. We have some people who do a great job under sometimes trying circumstances.
Yes.
So they do a really good job.
It's easy to get emotional when you got to pay some money. So
Yes,
people do get that way on occasion. Again, folks, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for looking ahead on Facebook or some of the rebroadcast. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, guys. That was
All
great.
right.
That was